Here is a little help on part 4 of the essay, Reading a Challenging Text with No Strategy. So I've selected a text for a sample. This one is called Examining Transformational Resistance Through a Critical Race and Lat-Crit Theory Framework. Selected it randomly. I've never read it before. So I'm about to read it for the first time. I get out some note paper, or for me, because I type faster than I write, I have a window open here on the side to take notes. Okay, and before I even get below the title, I note that when I read the word lat-crit, it makes me nervous, makes me think I'm not going to understand the article because I don't know that word. Is it a native word, or does crit have something to do with criticism? Then I go and I start reading. East Los Angeles school walkouts. In 1968, people witnessed a worldwide rise in student movements in countries such as France, Italy, Mexico, and the United States. Blah, blah, blah. I read down. It's talking about Chicanos and Chicanas walking out of high school in East Los Angeles as a result of poor educational conditions. 36 demands, including smaller class size, bilingual education, and more emphasis on Chicano history. I glance back. Oh yeah, 1968. So far I'm with it. I'm not lost. I don't need to take a note about how it's going other than I get it. Then it says UCLA Chicana and Chicano Studies protest. 25 years later, in 1993, a multi-ethnic group of students occupied UCLA to protest the chancellor's decision not to support the expansion of the Chicano Studies program to departmental status. So they decided not to make a Chicano Studies department. As I keep reading, 100 students were arrested, taken to jail. A second protest was planned, a hunger strike. I'm doing okay. I'm understanding. We get to this third one. We open this article with these two historical examples to emphasize the varied yet consistent forms of Chicana. Okay, right here I notice that phrase throws me, so I go to my notes and I put varied yet, and autocorrect is changing it, varied yet consistent forms, and that throws me. I understand varied means different, but what is a consistent form? A form that stays the same? What does that mean here for protest? Then I go back to my reading. Chicano students have engaged and indeed do engage in resistance that is motivated by a desire to create more just and equitable learning environments. However, the majority of resistance studies provide information about how youth participate in oppositional behavior that reinforces social inequality. Okay, that doesn't make any sense to me, so I go back here and I say youth participate in oppositional behavior that reinforces social inequality. Now, it's not enough just to say I get lost here or I get confused. You have to sort of grapple with it a little bit. So right here, this confuses me. I think oppositional behavior would be like protesting. But how does that reinforce inequality? You would think, doesn't protesting help change or fight for equality. So anytime you're confused, try to name your confusion, try to wonder right there in your notes about what's going on. And then keep going. These are just notes. I'm not going to use all of them when I write my paragraph. I'm going to pick a couple, maybe 3 good examples. So I go back here, I read about theoretical conceptual limitations. I don't know what they're talking about there. I go down and it has a diagram. I can talk about how that hits my brain. Am I a visual learner? I might take a quick note on whether this helps or hinders my understanding. Then I go down and it numbers it. 1, reactionary behavior. 2, self-defeating resistance. 3, conformist resistance. And maybe I'll make a quick note about the listing of different forms of resistance actually helps my brain get it. You can have positive in there too, because again, these are just your notes and you'll be choosing. And then I keep reading, I get down to some critical media literacy, transformational resistance. I read about that, I take a note. Not every paragraph are you going to have a note. It talks about transformational resistance can be internal and external. Okay, I might note that I don't understand how resistance can be external. Like internal, I get it, that it comes from inside of you. But what does that mean? Well, maybe after I read this, I get it, or I still don't. Keep going down. Counter storytelling. What the heck is that? Done. Take all my notes. Then I check the essay assignment, and it's going to say read the reading straight through. Write about how that goes. What does this tell you about how your reading brain works? What are the challenges? Is there a struggle? Be specific. That's what I'm talking about here. You need notes to be specific about what your brain does and doesn't do as you read. So when you start writing that paragraph, for does, you might say, well, I learned that my brain likes having a list and the words in bold, such as this part. That helped me get the different forms of resistance. But I learned that my brain doesn't like when there's a diagram and it made me think this and that. And I would give the example even about lat crit being in the title, and maybe another example. Your paragraph's going to be a little bit bigger for this one because there's a lot to fit in there. I hope that gets you started, though, with thinking about a challenging text with no strategy.